Welcome back to another episode of Harmonious at Lunch, the show that fuels your business success. I'm Brandon Gano, your host and guide through the world of harmonious business growth. Today, we're unlocking powerful strategies with industry experts to help your business thrive. If you're a business owner, entrepreneur, or executive, you are in the right place. Join me and our incredible guests today on the journey to clarity, growth, and success. It is time to revolutionize your approach to business. Let's dive in with another episode of Harmonious at Lunch. Welcome back to some more bite-sized business advice. Today's episode is not bite-sized. This is the whole thing. This is where it all comes from. We're talking about a topic that I just happen to be a little biased, but is one of my favorites. We're talking about core values and becoming a magnetic leader, transforming your leadership, and as a result, your business. So I'm excited to dive in and unpack this. And I have a super fun guest lined up for us today, Andrea Johnson. Andrea, welcome to the show. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Brandon. I am excited to get into all of this. It sounds good.
It does. I hope it is, because we're the ones delivering it. So let's hope it is a good one. But no, you are a transformational leadership coach, and your company name, which I want to talk about, is the Intentional Optimist. Mm-hmm. I have to, you said there was a story behind it before we started recording, and I said, pause. No, we have to hear it live. So tell me, what is this story? Because it's such a unique name.
Well, we grow up and we do things that we do and we get on this path. So I'm 57. I'm just going to throw that out there at the very beginning. And I hit 50 and said, I'm not sure this is what I want to do. I'm not sure this is who I want to be. 50 happened to be the same year that we lost my mother to breast cancer. And I had an 8-year-old adopted son. And I said, you know what? I think I want to move forward a little bit differently. I had always been personal growth oriented. I'd been taking lots of leadership courses. I had been walking up through the ranks of management at a university medical school. And when I lost my mother, it kind of put me in this what I would call a crucible. So I kind of looked at the things that I loved about her. She was super strong, super bubbly. She was like Norm from Cheers. She'd walk in the room and everybody said, Judy. And I am bubbly and I have lots of energy, but I wasn't quite what she was. And so I decided, how do I want to show up as me? So I did some brain dumps and really kind of looked at myself. And I said, there are things about her that I would love to emulate better. And that's what came up and came out as I actually walked through this process. I came up with 6 tenets, and I wanted to call myself something. And I, go back to, and I'll share this too, I'm also a DISC consultant. So if you go back to pre-DISC, before we had the DISC, it was the humors or the choleric and the sanguine and the melancholy. And I wanted to call myself sanguine. And all my friends and family said, nobody knows what that means. You would have to explain it every day. And I said, all right, well, then what could I be? And when I looked at, what could I call my company? Because if you Google Andrea Johnson, I just can't even imagine how many you're going to come up with, because I could not even use that as a business name. But when I looked at my tenets and these pillars of things that I wanted to say, these are the principles and the attitudes I want to live out every day. The very last one that kind of bookends everything is intentionality. And it means that I have a purpose and I'm driven. And when I would walk down the hall, people knew I was coming. And so I said, all right, so how about intentional this, because whatever it's going to be, because what I want to be is optimistic. I want to be sanguine, which is bubbly and light, but it's not, I said, it can't just be optimistic, because then people think toxic optimism or Pollyanna. So I said, you know what? I'm just going to let these bookended pieces of my own personal life growth philosophy be my title, and it's intentional optimism. And so I have the 6 tenets that I work my clients through after we've gone through a couple of other things, but that's where the story of my business comes from. And I tell you what, I've tried to trademark it. I'm in the middle of doing that, and it's a pain, but everybody loves it. They say, where did it come from? And so it just gets people's attention. And so that's what my website is called, everything.
I love it. I'm glad you didn't go with sanguine, because I've never heard of that word before, and I'd have to Google it, and then I'd feel insignificant, and that never worked.
Very 18th century. It's like, it's like an 18th century doctor that might want to bleed you or use leeches. It's like, let's not do that.
No, I love it. I love the Intentional Optimist. That's such a cool name. So these 6 tenets, does that have anything to do with what we're going to talk about today with core values?
Well, not really. I started sort of, but they're the attitudes and mindsets that we live out in order to be able to express our core values and honor our core values in a way that is gracious and kind and like sustainable. And I love that word because a lot of times we try to do things and we work from the outside in. And that's kind of where I started. I worked from the outside in. These are the things that I kind of live out in my life. And then I realized I got to go deeper. And so that's where I start my clients with is deeper. We work from the inside out because transformation is an inside job. It's not something you can do from the outside in. It has to start from the inside out. So those are the third piece, but I have plenty of information on them if you want to contact me.
Absolutely. So we'll include ways to contact Andrea down below in the show notes and along with a very special gift that we'll get to later. So let's dive into core values then, because like I said, I am biased. It is one of my favorite things to do. Full transparency here. This is the first place we start with all of our clients. If we have never spoken to you before and you have taken us on to help you grow your business, we are starting with core values and then company mission and then vision in that order, no exceptions. I don't care how good you say they are. So Andrea, I want to know the best way to start building and uncovering companies' core, well, company and personal core values so that we can transform our leadership, transform our companies, and get to that next level. So where do you start with people when building core values?
Well, the first place I start is kind of defining the difference between a little bit of what you might do and what I do, because I don't look at business core values. I have had clients who have been entrepreneurs and founders who have taken their personal core values and then written their business because they're an entrepreneur and it's their business, written their business core values as principles and mission and vision that they want to live out. But what I do is I actually go all the way inside and say, you've got your own core values. It's not just what you're living out. And so I want to make sure that each individual understands who they are. These are your non-negotiables. These are the things that every decision you've ever made, every time you've been angry with someone, every offense you've ever had, every tear of joy that you have shed has all been either affected by or as a result of a core value that you have. These are your internal principles and priorities that represent the foundational convictions that allow you to move through the world, to move through all of the hardships, all of the wonderful things, all of the growth, all while keeping your own personal identity and authority at the forefront. So when we start there and we recognize these aren't things you can see, these are not outside of you, they are inside of you. Like I said, it's an inside job. When you start there, then you actually can move out and say, all right, so then as a business owner, how do I want this to show up in my business, which is where business core values come in. So I take it one step back. I go to like a little more root cause look for core values than you do. I don't know. Maybe I'm assuming there.
Yeah, no, I love it. And when we work with the leadership teams and we make sure we have their individual core values in place. But yeah, we fully believe that in order to have company core values, what are companies made up of? Human beings.
Humans, yeah.
And we have to understand the core values of everyone we put on our teams. That's why, you see in the marketplace, there's a big push for DEI and it's a buzzword these days. Well, most times that's going to conflict with your core values and you're going to have a lot of problems on your teams if not done correctly. So I'm all about diversity, but core value alignment needs to come first. So I'm in 100% agreement with you that it has to come from deep within the individual, and then we can express the company's core values. So yeah, I'd love to unpack how you go about doing that with your clients so we can start to reveal because I don't think it's creating core values. It's like you said, everything you said is revealing what your core values are.
Yeah. And I think what I actually say to people is I like to move you from imitating other people's principles and priorities to defining your own for sustainable leadership. And we lead ourselves first, right? So anything that we do for ourselves, we then can do for other people. And if you find yourself in a situation with responsibility without authority, or you don't enjoy your work, or you are consistently compromising the things that you think are your principles, maybe you're bored or unbalanced. Those are the things that we actually kind of look at and start working with people. The exercise I walk them through seems simple, right? It can be on one piece of paper and with a little notebook that you actually walk through on your own. But depending on how aware you are and how developed you are in your own personal growth, you might need a little help. But the basics are this. Number one, like I said a minute ago with my own personal work, it's a word dump. You're actually figuring out all of the things that I actually have you sit down and say, the 5 people who know me best, what would they say about me? Right? I don't want you to ask anybody. I want you to think about what you think they say. And then we narrow that down and say, well, why? And what words go together? And we try to get down to about a top 5. And then I have an exercise that I call taking them out for a spin. I get little notebooks like these little bitty ones here, and I say, put one word at the top of each page and then put it in your pocket, put it in your, like if it's your woman, put it in your purse, put it in your back pocket or in your car or in your desk. Every single day, every time something bumps up against what you think might be a core value, like autonomy, respect, diversity, freedom of thought, that's my top one, autonomy of thought, belonging or authenticity, all those things, right? Just kind of keep track of how often they show up and where they show up, because that's going to tell you, and how intensely they show up. You can find patterns and you can see where, that's this situation, the reason why. And I just had a client conversation this last week. She said, it didn't even occur to me that every single time I'm in this meeting and this person starts talking, I get upset and want to leave. And it's because they're stepping on my core value. And now they recognize it and they were able to actually kind of put themselves out there a little bit and say something in the meeting without being emotional about it, because they understood this is just something that they're stepping on for me. So once we figure that out, then we actually go really, really deep and prioritize everything and start integrating them into your life and leadership. When you do that, then you can reprioritize them and kind of make it so that you have your own definition. We don't take Google definitions or Webster's definitions for every word. Sometimes you may have 10 words and those 10 words combine into 3 core values, like I call them your primary and then maybe secondary core values. And those 10 words, you might use 3 or 4 of them in each one to define what they are. That process, it makes it actually pretty easy to then take it and say, as a business owner or as a team leader, how can I have these show up in my team? I actually started doing this I was working with a veterinary hospital and I was working with a team leader, and it hadn't occurred to me to take it out to her team because I was just executive coaching her. And she said, do you care if I share this with my team? And I'm like, no, knock yourself out. And she did, and did exactly what you said. She then took that and rolled it up to her team. And now every time there's a conflict in the team, she said, are we actually aligning with are we honoring? And I use the word honor rather than align, because for me, if I'm aligning, I'm putting myself on a trajectory to be in line with somebody else's something. And I'm so intent on making sure that I and you get to remain in your own space and your own authenticity and authority, that I say, are we honoring our team core values? And so when you do that, the implications are huge, right? It's like in my family, like I said, my top one is freedom of thought. My husband no longer says to me, what do you, actually, he used to say, wouldn't you agree that? I was like,
how dare you?
I mean, before I uncovered this, before I understood, I was like, you're putting me in a pickle here. I don't know how to answer that. And my mother would say, don't you love this painting? And I'd be like, I don't know what if I don't, right? I have to think about it and then I'll decide whether I like it or not. But if I don't, are you going to be okay with that? And everybody around me was like, why do you have to make this so complicated? Until I uncovered this idea that it really does matter to me that nobody tell me what to think. I mean, literally. And so now my husband says, what do you think about this? And then we can have a conversation about anything. And we might end up on the same page and I might enjoy the painting, but at least I've gotten there on my own. So now I've learned how to express that to people and they know how to work with me in that area. So it has implications for that conversation, communication. It has implications for boundaries. I no longer have to defend the fact that I like to think for myself. It just is, and I don't force it on people. I just don't have to think like you anymore.
Yeah. And that's powerful too, because you're not conformed to, like you said, anyone else's box that they may put you in. Is there ever a time where you put that on the shelf? So for example, you walk into, it doesn't really have to do with business, but I think it spills over into how you interact in a day-to-day basis with your team, your employees, your peers, whatever. You go into a coffee shop and they ask you, do you love, same thing, do you love this new drink we created or whatever? Do you ever just say, love it? Like, I don't need to think for myself right now. This is, in this scenario, this is totally fine to just agree. Does that ever happen with you?
There are restaurants where they're like, so how is everything? And I'm like, I don't have the energy for this. It's fine. I mean, it's like, but I know inside what I'm doing, it's like, I now recognize that in myself. And so, we get the choice. And I think that's the point here, is that I like to use my house as an example. I planted forsythias too close to the road, so people walk inside, because I have no sidewalk. I'm in the country, and so people will walk inside the line of bushes in my property. But I know that it doesn't bother me because I created that on my own. But they don't walk up to my door and just walk in. They just don't. It is a generally accepted understanding that you barge into somebody's house without their permission and you are trespassing. And so I kind of see my primary or your primary core values as your house and your door. And when people get to the point of wanting to enter your house, they knock on your door and you have the opportunity to open it or shut it or not. Right. And so when we can when we can see it that way, then we no longer feel like I have to be honest with the waiter and say, well, actually, this was a little cold, or I actually don't like chai. And because I don't find that people, there's a grace that comes with that. And that's where intentional optimism comes in. I don't find that always expressing my opinion about everything is helpful, right? But I have to learn out of wisdom when that's appropriate. And my principle that I live out of people are more important overrides those things sometimes. Because inside, I know, because my third core value is belonging, Brandon. So it is more important sometimes, and they'll like switch places. It is more important for you to feel like you belong with me than for me to express whether or not I really love it.
Interesting dynamic between those two.
Yeah.
And obviously, when to prioritize one over the other, which I guess kind of leads me to my next question. The thought that was coming up was, for the people who don't put intentionality or any thought for that matter into their personal core values, those seem to be the people who are, I'll just use the big word, immature. And
Sure.
they allow themselves to be triggered by things, because when you're triggered, it's because someone has stepped over, they entered your house, to use
That's
your
right.
analogy.
Yes.
So if we're not doing this from a leadership perspective, if you are not sitting down with your team and making sure that everybody knows their core values, you can't have those meetings, like you said before, with your client, where she would get offended without realizing it, or with that one person.
Mm-hmm.
So this is why I think it's just so important for every individual, every human being in an organization to understand their core values, and also not for other people to like know them, but to be able to respect other people's, and to have a sense of openness about it, like you with the bushes. I think that to me is the most important part of integrating this in business. So it might be like a fluffy buzzword of core values, but like, that's why I'm so passionate about it, because it has such huge implications if you don't address it.
Yeah. It really does. And, what I tell people, the very first way to figure out what yours are, look back over the last month and find the places where you were the most angry and the places where you were the most happy. And that's where you start. Because those are the things that you feel most passionate about, because it's going the deepest for you and it's stepping on that somehow.
For me, it was I undersmoked a brisket, and I got really triggered by that because I like a good brisket. So I don't know if I have some more unpacking to do, but
well, if I were coaching you, I would ask you what it is about the result that matters, right? It's like, and so that's part of, and so that's the thing too. It's like some people are good at this. Some people live in honor of their core values all the time. And I love meeting unicorns that can do that. I was not that person because of the way I was raised and because of what I decided to take on. It was important for me to fit in. And so I dishonored my core values for a really long time. And we do that to ourselves. But what I love about being able to work with other people is I get to work on different levels of like, here's a one pager, or here's a digital course, or here's coaching that can go with it. And it's very rewarding to watch people figure themselves out and go, oh, That's why my mother thought I was a strong-willed child, because she was trying to tell me what to think.
Mm,
So,
yeah.
yeah.
It's powerful. And you have given the audience actually one of those exercises. The website's on the screen. It's also in the show notes. Give me the high level overview. What is this core value exercise for the listener?
That process that I described to you, it's a one-page outline of exactly what to do. And so it'll walk you through step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. And if you're willing to take the time to do it, give yourself however long it takes you. Some people can do it in an hour, but I never really trust that one. But I design it to do a week or 2 or 4. And at the bottom of the page, if you need more help, is information on my core values course, which is designed to be done in about 30 days. And then there's also the option for individual coaching with that. So that's in a beta testing program. So let me know, and you can always DM me on Instagram or LinkedIn. I will always respond.
I love this. I love core values. I love all of it. I love the exercise. And yeah, I think the only risk is not going through the exercise. That
You got
to
nothing to
me,
lose.
you have nothing to lose. And I like that you say it should take time too, because yeah, trying them out, you use the word test drive, which I think is awesome.
Yeah.
It will set you up for the rest of your life for understanding yourself, other people, and how to interact. So amazing, amazing episode. What
This
you got there?
started for me in 1995.
Oh, I love it. That's
Okay.
awesome.
So with Franklin Covey, and my very top one was freedom. As a 27-year-old, I thought freedom from a job was going to be the ultimate freedom. So you can see over time how it is. I have understood myself better, and now I can say it is freedom of thought. So that's how long it can take, but it's a dedication to you.
I love it. I love the freedom of thought, and I want to honor that. So I'm going to say this with my last question. We believe at What If that powerful questions get you powerful answers. That's why I have a giant upside down lit up obnoxious question mark behind me. I know you love the name. I know you love the phrase what if, but Andrea, my question for you is for a question. Leaving this episode, what would you like the listener to be asking themselves in regards to whether it's developing their core values, refining them, recognizing them, whatever it is? What is that one question that's going to get them a powerful answer as they go into the rest of their day or the rest of their week?
What do I have to lose, and what do I think about this? Right? Because a lot of times we're not taught critical thinking, and to honor my core value, I want you to be able to think for yourself. So what am I not thinking about that I could be, that will make all the difference in the world?
I love that question. That was awesome. Andrea, thank you so much for being here. You're a fantastic guest.
Thank you.
For those of you watching or listening, don't do anything else but go grab this exercise. theintentionaloptimist.com/core values exercise. That's fantastic. I'm going to go grab my copy because I love core values so much. And I'm nosy, so I want to see what it is. I want you to grab your copy too, but also subscribe. We love bringing this podcast to you every single day of the week to help you move your business one little step forward by asking better questions. We'll see you on the next episode of Harmonious at Launch. Thanks for joining.